Wir sind zusammen groß, wir sind zusammen eins.
A wonderful welcome to another episode here for Servus Crowd, Germany for non-German. It's been a while, simply because of the tense situation in Europe with the Ukraine conflict, invasion of Russia, and so on. The feeling just wasn't really there, to be honest. But eventually we have to keep on going and we have to keep doing what we're doing. So we hopefully also can keep on making our living, and in this case then also help supporting what is right. So let's keep doing what we're doing. And today I thought, okay, let's try to be not political for once, for a week or so. And let's see how that goes. So I was looking up a few questions that are very commonly asked when it comes to Germany. So I went to Google, I was like, why is German? And then let Google suggest the rest. And why is Germany? Let Google suggest the rest, and so on. And so now I found a few very common questions that Google suggests people are looking for. So, well, without further ado, let me answer some of apparently your most common questions. So, first question that popped up, obviously, why is German so hard? That's a very good question. Because we don't want just anyone to speak our language. We need you to show some dedication to be able to speak our language. I'm kidding, right? I know Germans aren't famous for their sense of humor, so maybe it wasn't funny for you, but it's not hard on purpose, I think. It's not like, hey, let's make it super hard on purpose for foreigners or anything like that. I think it's just because Germans, like in all walks of life, in all aspects of life, we try to think through everything. We try to have rules and guidelines for everything. And so the language does too. There are like 7 or what tenses that could or that tell you how to use the grammar and words and whatnot in any circumstance. For example, right now I live in Thailand. And the Thai language, while very, very difficult in terms of pronunciation and so on, and the pronunciation here matters, so it's a completely different language, but there are definitely no 7 tenses there. So it's just very different culturally. So the German culture is just more on like, let's have rules for just about everything, so that we can all follow those rules. And I think that's why it's so hard. I think the words themselves, more on this in a second, they're very logically, most of them, they make sense if you understand the language, if you understand the vocabulary. You're like, oh, okay, this thing right now, the refrigerator, for example, is called Kühlschrank, right? Kühl means cool. Schrank means, well, now I'm missing the English word, like not shelf, right? So it's a cool shelf, basically. And so that makes sense. The grammar, of course, is ridiculously hard. And that's, I think, because there are just so many rules. Okay, another question that came up with in Google was, why is German engineering so good? That's also a good question because I'm not an engineer. So apparently I don't fit this. But I think it's also, if there are just that many, for example, car and high-tech companies, then you're looking for the best engineers. I don't necessarily think that all the engineers are Germans, for example. There are lots of international engineers working for German companies. So it's just that it attracts the talent, I assume. Other questions. Why is German so different? Different from what? Why is German hard to learn? Okay, we also had this. Why is German internet so bad? There must be something that people in Germany are Googling. As someone who doesn't live in Germany anymore, let me tell you, your internet is fantastic. Why is German called Deutsch? What? Why is German so harsh? It's not harsh. It's just straightforward and direct. We're very lovable people. Stop billing us as harsh. We had another podcast episode on that already, though, so you can check that out. Why is German food so bad? How dare you? Potatoes are awesome. How dare you? Really, German food is bad? Don't most people like German food? At least German bakery? Like, hey, come on, think about the crispy bread and all those things. German food bad? How dare? That's the most offensive search I found today. Why is German food so bad? How dare you? Why is German similar to English? Because we're using lots of anglicisms, like lots of words from English that we didn't translate. Internet, for example. Why is German so aggressive? It's not aggressive. We are not aggressive. Again, it's just because of the language, like the way it sounds. I think it's just very straightforward. Not lots of like intonations. Like here in Thailand, for example, it's all about like the intonations and like how you pronounce words and so on. You can make it sound like more polite and harsher the way you pronounce things. That really matters a lot more here than, for example, in German. All right. I also typed in, why is Germany? And the first question is, why is Germany to blame for World War One? Go read history. I don't want to relive history. Why is Germany to blame for World War One? Come on, read the history. Read what happens. Then you see why Germany is to blame for World War One. If you don't blame Germany for World War One, you're German. I'm kidding, people. I'm kidding. Why is Germany not helping Ukraine? Is the second question. Germany is not. Like, how should Germany help Ukraine? I wonder. We talked about like this political like stuff the last two podcasts, like how Germany used to have the rule that they don't sell weapons to crisis herds and that they don't let weapons be delivered or through Germany from other countries into crisis areas, but that changed. So they are trying to help at some point. Could they help more? Yes, definitely they could help more, of course. But you know the whole deal with like NATO versus Russia and so on. So it's obviously a difficult topic, and we discussed it in the past two podcasts and probably in the next one again too. So let's leave it at this for right now. Why is Germany called Germany? Yeah, that's a great idea. Why is Germany so powerful? Well, lots of soft power there in Germany, I believe, thanks to the economy, of course, as well. We should have an economy podcast at some point, like how that actually all works. Then we would also have to look back into the Second World War and so on. It's gonna hurt some feelings, but maybe it's worth it. So I'll think about it to have a podcast on that. That's a good question, actually. Why is Germany shutting down nuclear plants? Yeah, well, now maybe not anymore because of the issues with the gas from Russia. Germany wanted to go like all green, and they didn't think about nuclear plants being green. But that just changed, of course, as of late. That nuclear plants have been declared being green. So there you go. Why is Germany so rich? The economy, just lots of export, of course. That's why Germany is so rich. Why is Germany called Deutschland? Great question. Why is Germany not part of NATO? What? And the last question again, why is Germany not supporting Ukraine? What? I'm not offended. I just wonder, like, what else should Germany do? What should other countries do to support Ukraine more? And it's a curious question. So that's not a condescending question. It's a curious question. Maybe I should also do some research on that. Like, what else could they be doing? Because I honestly, living like abroad right now, I only see what the German government, of course, puts out in the news, and it looks like they're doing some things, but maybe they could. Actually, while I'm talking, that is very true. That is the government could. I was thinking about like German people, but the government could definitely do more, stand more firmly with the Ukraine, for example, if they would choose to do so. Mr. Zelensky made some good points also in regards to Angela Merkel, and I don't want to hate like on Angela Merkel now, because she obviously did lots of good things. So yeah, that's a good question. Okay, that's another podcast episode on how Germany could help Ukraine. And that's a good idea. I'll do some research on that, and we'll have that up rather soon. That's a very good. See how Google helps. That's a very good question, actually. I appreciate anyone who typed this into Google. A few other questions that came up. Is it true that German universities have no tuition fees? Yes, and no, and yes. So yes, it's true. In 2014, all 16 states, they abolished tuition fees at all universities, which is fantastic for the people studying ever since. As for people like me, who just graduated I graduated in 2011 from university. I think, damn, I'm old. I studied during a brief period of time where there was tuition fee. Awesome, thank you, Germany. But yeah, right now it's free. That is true. Why do German toilets have two, except the private unis, of course. Why do German toilets have two push buttons? What? So it's called dual flush system, and it's nothing crazy, is it? So you can choose whether or not you use lots of water or like a little water to save water? That is a fantastic question. Why is there no speed limit in Germany? It's a great discussion right now. So right now, the German Autobahn, there's no general speed limit, right? The highway, the Autobahn. I think the car industry is just a huge lobby, but there's a huge discussion right now, and like lots of people want the speed limit. Lots of political parties want it, but of course, then the big parties don't want it because of the car lobby. But still, I read a statistic that around 50% of the Autobahn are already subject to speed limit. So it's not like there's no speed limit at all, right? So there, like 50% or 40 or 50% of the Autobahn already have speed limits. It's just not a general speed limit. And right now, lots of initiatives are working on it. They want a speed limit because it's safer, it saves energy and so on. But the auto lobby and of course also Germans like, I love my cars, so we don't want the speed limit. Why are German words so long? Good question. It's because like German words, they just make sense. So you can join them together to form like new and longer words. So you can express the content of what you want to describe like more concisely. But they're like those famous, like the longest words in the world. Like one of the longest words in German, I think, is Rindfleisch-Etikettierungsüberwachungsaufgabenübertragungsgesetz. Yeah, that was one word. But that's just, so it makes sense, right? But it's not a word we would just use. We would just create. So most of those compound words in Germany are like 2 or 3 words, and that's usually enough. So yes, you could do it because they're just made to make sense to put together, but usually it's not like we're doing this on purpose. Like, let's create the longest words ever. So that's usually not what Germans do. Okay, I got a few more questions that I found here, and then we're wrapping things up already for this little less serious episode. We have to have those once in a while, I think, right? Literacy rate in Germany. Why is that a question? Literacy, I did some research for that question. It's quite high. It's like, I think 99% or so. How many FIFA World Cups has Germany won? Now that the World Cup is coming, I should have a World Cup episode, right? Now that the World Cup is coming close, that we're all boycotting, obviously. 4. We won 4 times. 1954, 1974, 1990, and 2014 is when we won. And of course, 2022, but that doesn't count because we should boycott it. And no, I don't think we're going to win. Germany is in the group stage. We will face, if they lose, it's them. If we win, it's us. We will face, I think, Spain, Japan. So amazing meme by Dark History Memes on Instagram. It's like we shouldn't ask the question what those countries did like between 1934 and 1945. So it's Germany, it's Spain, it's Japan, and it's the winner between Costa Rica and New Zealand. That's in the initial group. So Germany should be an easy pick for making it through as on second place. But let's see. What's the official language of Germany? What language? Why are there so many questions about what language do people speak in Germany? What's happening? What culture do people follow in Germany? German culture. I think it's usually really a lot of focus on I would maybe even say Stoicism a little bit. I think Stoicism. It's not officially like, hey, let's study Stoicism, but I think lots of Germans are just a bit more stoic than maybe other cultures. I think. I would, that's what I would describe it like right now. But maybe we should have a whole episode on the culture and how to develop as well. Is living in Germany expensive? Yes. Well, depends how you live, of course. Like Germany is very much. I don't know how to explain it. Like if you do things by yourself, right? So now that I live abroad, I can compare a little. So for example, here in Thailand, it's super common to just go somewhere and eat there. And you call a taxi for everywhere you go and so on. If you do this in Germany, yes, it's very expensive. You don't just call a taxi to just go wherever. You go by bicycle or whatever, public transport. You don't just go out to eat all the time. You would cook at home by yourself and so on. So if you are good at doing those things by yourself, then you can certainly live like without getting poor, hopefully. If you go out all the time and use taxis and so on, then yes, it's going to be very expensive. It also depends where you live, like Munich, Hamburg, and so on, Düsseldorf, very expensive cities. If you live in smaller cities, or maybe even in the right district in Berlin, for example, then you can have a nice, living without getting too poor, I would say. What are the cons of living in Germany? Well, you have to live with Germans. That's a joke. Germans are awesome. It's also a joke. Should I go to Germany? Yes, definitely. You should go to Germany. Okay, that might have sounded like sarcastic, but no, go to Germany. Ever since I left Germany, that's always the case, right? You appreciate things that you don't have anymore. So ever since I left stopped living in Germany, left Germany, I do see it like with different eyes. I see it like when my friends go visit there, when I go there like once a year or so, and then I take friends just go there and I'll tell them where to go, what to do. I see it in different eyes now. So I think Germany is definitely worth a visit, maybe even worth to live there for a while if you have the chance to. Yeah, try it. Just as long as you are okay with the people and the culture, and don't expect them to be just like what you're used to, because maybe they're not as warm and welcoming as at first, or they don't appear to be at first. That's not on purpose. It's not because they're bad people. It's just because we're like a bit more reserved. But once we know you and once we're actually friends, we're going to be friends for life. So I think that's something worth noting. So yes, to answer the question, you should go to Germany. Go to Germany. All right, so that's been like a more less serious podcast episode for once. Looking back at what we discussed today, what we talked about today, I assume next week's going to be more serious again. But some good topics that came up in those questions, so I'll look into all of those, and then I'll talk to you again rather soon. Until then, do stay safe, take care, and I hope we talk again soon. If possible, it would be also very cool if you could just, the drill, like, share, subscribe. Ideally, also rate this podcast, because if you rate it, more people can see it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and so on. And then we have a bigger audience, and then we can have bigger, broader discussions, which would just make it even more fun. All right, that's it for me for this week. So thanks again. I'll see and talk to you soon. Stay safe, take care. Until then, Servus.
Nur zusammen, das war nicht allein. Komm, lass uns alles miteinander teilen.